Hello, reviewees! Today, we are excited to continue our journey by diving into the world of reasoning, which is a natural progression from our logical foundation. In this lesson, we will also discuss the correct reasoning, syllogism, and the nuances of premises. So let us sharpen our thinking skills and embark on this exciting intellectual exploration together. First, let us discuss what reasoning is all about. Reasoning is the process through which the mind or the capability of thinking arrives at a conclusion from the previously possessed judgment. Reasoning is a cognitive process that involves the use of logical and critical thinking to make sense of information and draw conclusions. It is a fundamental aspect of human intelligence and is used in problem solving, decision making, and understanding concepts. Reasoning is a special kind of thinking in which problems are solved, in which inference takes place, that is, in which conclusions are drawn from premises. Reasoning, however, is a function of the mind or the capability of thinking. So this highlights the connection between reasoning and human cognition. It also serves the purpose of arriving at conclusions or solutions to questions or problems. So what is correct reasoning? It says here that if the premises do provide adequate grounds for accepting the conclusion, if asserting the premises to be true thus warrant asserting the conclusion also to be true, then the reasoning is correct, otherwise it is incorrect. The validity of reasoning hinges on the relationship between the premises and the conclusion. If the premises indeed supply sufficient justification for accepting the conclusion, and asserting the truth of the premises necessitates the truth of the conclusion, the reasoning is deemed correct. However, if this connection is lacking, the reasoning is considered incorrect. So correct reasoning is a guide to good thinking. The subjects that deal with correct reasoning teach the methods and principles for distinguishing correct from incorrect reasoning. Since everyone makes error in reasoning at least sometimes, we all need to keep an eye on the rules of reasoning, especially when things get complicated and matters become difficult to resolve. Ultimately, studying correct reasoning allows us to achieve a certain degree of confidence that we have a sensible point when we critique others' line of thought or present our own argument. The forms of logical reasoning have in common that they use premises to make inferences in a norm-governed way. As norm-governed practices, they aim at intersubjective agreement about the application of the norms. That is, agreement about whether and to what degree the premises support their conclusion. It relies on premises to draw inferences following established norms. These norms serve as guidelines for sound argumentation and aim to facilitate agreement among individuals on the validity and strength of the reasoning process. The mental act is called reasoning. The mental product refers to the inferential thinking, and the external expressions are called syllogisms. The process of human condition involves distinct components. Reasoning is the internal mental act. Inferential thinking is the outcome of this cognitive process, and syllogism as the external manifestation or expression of this thinking. These three elements are interconnected, with reasoning driving inferential thinking, which can then be communicated through syllogisms or other forms of external expression. A syllogism is an instance of a form of reasoning in which a conclusion is drawn, whether validly or not, from two given or assumed propositions, or the premises, each of which shares a term with the conclusion and shares a common or middle term not present in the conclusion. In a syllogism, two premises with a shared term known as the middle term, are used to draw a conclusion that relates to that shared term. Syllogisms comes in various types, including valid and invalid ones, and they are a foundational concept in classical logic and critical thinking. The structure of a syllogism helps analyze the logical relationship between the premises and the conclusion, making it a valuable tool for evaluating the soundness of arguments and the validity of reasoning. So categorical syllogism usually has three parts: the major premise, the minor premise, and the conclusion. So let us talk about these three parts of categorical syllogism. The first one is what we call the major premise. This is the first premise and provides a statement about the relationship between the major term, which is the predicate of the conclusion, and the middle term, which appears in both premises but not in the conclusion. The major premise is a key component of a syllogism. It serves as the initial premise that establishes a statement about the relationship between the major term and the middle term. The major premise is vital for constructing a syllogism because it sets the stage for the logical connection between the terms involved, helping to form a coherent and structured argument. The next one is called minor premise. This is the second premise and provides a statement about the relationship between the minor term, which is the subject of the conclusion, and the middle term. The minor premise, along with the major premise and the middle term, plays a crucial role in constructing a logically structured argument. It aids in determining the validity of the syllogism by establishing the relationship between the subject and the middle term, thereby helping to assess whether the conclusion is a valid inference based on the premises provided. The statement that follows logically from the major and minor premises in a syllogism is the conclusion. It represents the ultimate result of the deductive reasoning process, typically involving the major and minor terms established in the premises. The conclusion serves as the logical consequence of the relationship defined by the premises and provides an essential element for evaluating the soundness and validity of the argument. Again, the major premise contains the major term, the minor premise contains the minor term, and the conclusion whose meaning and truth is implied. So here is an example of a major premise. It says all humans are mortal. This is a classic example of a categorical proposition in a syllogism, which is a form of deductive reasoning. In this case, the major term is the word mortal, and the middle term is the word humans. The major premise sets up a universal relationship stating that the category of the humans is entirely encompassed within the category of mortals. So it provides a general truth or assumption that implies to all humans. The minor premise, John is human, is another component of a syllogism. In this example, the minor premise introduces specific information identifying that John as an individual who belongs to the category of humans. However, the example of conclusion says, therefore John is mortal, is the logical truth that follows from the combination of the major premise and the minor premise in a syllogism, which is a form of deductive reasoning. So this conclusion is reached by applying the principles established in the major premise to the specific case presented in the minor premise. So this illustrates how deductive reasoning enables us to draw specific conclusions by applying general principles to particular cases. As we wrap up this lesson on reasoning, We hope you've gained valuable insights and able to think critically and of course make informed decisions. In our next lesson, we will circle back to the world of deductive reasoning. So stay tuned and see you in the next video as we continue our journey to the realm of critical thinking.